So originally I wasn't going to review this show. I was just going to watch it and just for myself, just enjoy it. It just so happens that I went through episodes 1 through 4 in one sitting. That's kind of a strategic thing, just because, most Netflix shows, if you notice the writing, it's in the halfway mark that a revelation usually happens and it switches the narrative up. So to me, it's always a mid-season finale when you get to the middle episode of an 8 episode series or a 10 episode 4 or 5. At the end of it, there's usually a big cliffhanger that alters the entire narrative into the second act. I know that I'm not the only one who's noticed that, but it's just something that I wanted to comment on. And so I felt that it was appropriate that, because I'm enjoying this so much and I'm kind of on a writer's high, I want to speak on it. Just the first 4 episodes, just to document where am now and where I'm going to be by the end of it. The show that we're talking about is called Something Bad Is About to Happen. And it feels like a show that Netflix is definitely pushing for subscriptions, at least trying to, sort of become synonymous with the identity of Netflix. And what I mean by that is just like every 4 or 6 months, there's usually a show, right, that Netflix is really pushing, right? So anything Mike Flanagan related obviously makes it to the top of the list. Now it's anything with the Duffer Brothers. And because they produce this, it feels appropriate that they're trying to push this for subscriptions. If I had to compare this show to anything, and not because I'm forcing a comparison, but because the entire time I'm watching this, it reminds me of 2 shows that I think are really great and staples in their genre. The first one is Haunting on Hill House, obviously, and The Haunting of Hill House. I'm thinking, I always confuse The Haunting of Hill House with The House on Haunted Hill. I don't know if anybody else does that, but if you do, like the video. And the reason that this reminds me of The Haunting of Hill House, there's such a dreadful sense of, there's this meandering, tentacled, invisible dread that is just in every shot, in every frame, and it sports a big cast of characters. There is no wasted character. None of the characters here feel wasted. And the other one is Yellow Jackets, simply because Yellow Jackets is known for sort of tapering off into different subgenres of horror. So you have cult, social light horror elements, then you have supernatural elements, you have a sort of a procedural detective element. Yellow Jackets, and I was really impressed when I watched, and I haven't watched season 2 and it is on my watch list, but what really impressed me from that show is being able to balance all these characters in the same manner as Haunting of Hill House, but then also balancing all these different subgenres of horror. Something that I think this show is also doing really well. So you've got a great cast of characters that all seem intriguing. They all have their ids, if that makes sense. Now, before I go further, I should probably tell you a little bit about the show. On the surface, the show seems simple. You have, and the trailer makes it seem that way, you have a couple who are engaged and are going to the groom's family's cabin to get married in front of the family. Rachel, our main character, is feeling unsettled, like something bad is about to happen. Now that's where we start off the show. You don't know why she feels this way. You're not given a direct reason as to why she's feeling this sense of impending doom, like something is coming. What really impressed me was that even though I had no clue what the story was at the time, going in blind, because again, the trailer really doesn't, it sells you ambiance and it sells you vibes and it sells you atmosphere, but it doesn't sell you anything else. You just know something bad, and that title is doing a lot of heavy lifting, because while the trailer looks beautiful, the whole time you're reading the title, it's right on the screen in red letters, and you're like, what is it? I want to know, like, what is it? You're making a big deal out of this thing that's about to happen. Like, what is it? The first episode is just kind of the travels to the cabin, and they're on the long drive to go to the cabin, and she comes across really strange situations that you can only assume are because she has the worst luck in the world. And again, you're not given any reasons as to why any of this could happen, but it's a myriad of random things that compacted on top of each other build dread throughout the entire episode. Now, what's funny is that this couple, Rachel and her fiance, they clearly look like they're in love. They clearly look like they're in love. They banter like a couple that just fell in love. They're into the morbid shit. They're listening to dark podcasts, of true crimes on the road. They are making dark jokes together, and you could tell there's a distinct reason for both of them falling in love with each other. And with her, I love that her character is just kind of obviously someone who's dealt with a lot and is coping. She is a psychology major. So she is definitely someone who has the smarts to understand within herself that there are a lot of changes that need to happen and sort of taking action. She's such a conscious character. She is so aware of how she speaks to people and when is the right time to apologize and when to read people. And I'm so impressed by like the depiction of her character as someone that holds her own on an emotional level. It would be really easy to make a character who is just kind of edgy and dark. Where we're at now with her, she is working through these things, and you see it. You see it in the way that she carries herself or how she holds herself back from reacting or how she thinks about how she speaks and what she's saying. I just think they did a really good job sinking their hooks into the audience with a character like that. And by the audience, I mean me. I was hooked in the moment that I saw them driving in the car because of that back and forth. But what's impressive through the next 2 episodes is, again, all these very unique situations that she finds herself in that are kind of bananas. Like this is in the trailer. She is peeing and there is someone looking over her, over the cubicle as she's peeing. No reason why, at least you don't know one yet, but it's happening. At another point, also in the trailer, she sees a van and it's frozen the hell over, and inside is a baby without the parents. What are the chances that she would be the one to walk by this van and notice it? It leads into this sort of like this little side quest where she's trying to figure out where the parents are and then eventually reaching out to the police. The punchline to that entire scenario is kind of wild. And that's what I mean is something so small as her picking up a dirty penny. We all associate pennies with luck, and for her to find was just kind of emphasizing the nature of this show. Literally, the entire first episode felt like a Twilight Zone episode of the worst kind of shit that a human being could go through in a day where they're already anxious and they have this huge thing happening, and now there's everything that can go wrong goes wrong. And when I went to a film school at Full Sail, we all learned one thing when writing scripts, and it's that you write your characters into the worst possible situations at all times to keep the pace going, to keep the audience invested. This is the best example of that kind of script writing technique where you're just writing your characters into the shit. Because everything that's happened to them feels dreadful. Even the color grading of the entire show is dreadful, but it's so stylish and it serves a purpose. It serves the ambiance of this entire show, this entire narrative. We go into that with episode 2, but with episode 2, now we're in the cabin, we've met the family. And the family, without saying too much, are a strange crew of people. Like, they are strange. There's almost something otherworldly weird about them. It's disconcerting. And if she didn't love him that much, I know for a fact she would have fucking dipped. The things that these characters do and how they act, it feels almost like a secret cult of just people who have all been fucked by the same traumatic experience and are dealing with it in the most edgy, snarkiest, fucked up, confrontational way possible. It makes these characters super interesting, like super interesting, because every time there's a new character, there's always some kind of dynamic that's established between them and Rachel. Rachel is this sweet, reflective character who acknowledges her flaws and acknowledges the flaws in other people. And she's gentle about how she confronts them. And because she's a psychology major, so this is her shit. And even when people kind of challenge her, you see the composure she has, and there's people in your lives that you're probably thinking when you watch that scene that you'd be like, no, I know someone who would absolutely wring the head off of that person's neck if that happened to them. But the way that she's dealing with it doesn't feel like she's allowing herself to be stepped on. It just feels like she's really about the shit that she preaches. And I love it. I feel like she's such a consistent character, and it makes me root for her. I don't talk much about the groom because right now we haven't gotten into the crux of his character arc until a little bit later in episode 3. In episode 4, we go back more to Rachel. We do have a moment of focus for the groom in episode 3, but this is really Rachel's story and wondering like what's keeping her here. There's so much that the first 4 episodes establish, and not just in character arcs, but it also establishes themes of family lineage and passed on trauma. And what does it mean to be sempiternal with a person? What does it mean to dedicate yourself to a human being? What does that do to who you were? And will you allow yourself to become what you need to become for that person? And these are beautiful fucking questions in the grand scheme of things, but the answers to these questions are never the simplest. They're never easy. And I feel like this show uses the other characters to answer these questions in different ways. And most of them aren't great answers, but they're honest, low-key real answers, and comparable to maybe some people that you know in real life. I know for me, there's quite a few characters in here that I go, yeah, no, I've seen it. I've seen it. And I think that's what's really interesting, because in the middle of all these very interesting character arcs, we also managed to weave in elements of horror. And I think from episode 1 to 2, it feels like a Twilight episode that just constantly keeps trying to one-up itself with every new character and every new situation. By episode 3 or 4, without saying too much, we are touching on other genres of horror. We're leaning into slasher tropes. We're leaning into potential supernatural tropes. We're leaning into cryptid light tropes as well. And you're wondering, well, what is it? What does any of this mean? Because everything's presented to you in such a precise manner. Nothing's by accident. Every bit of writing in the first 2 to 4 episodes, especially the first 2, feel intentional. They're presenting to you all these different answers and then letting you decide which one feels most real to you. And what I love about this show so far is that the first 2 episodes are dedicated to 2 very specific, particular things, narrative plot points that made me believe that that was the thing that was happening. And then by episode 2, we shift. And now you're presented with something else that completely changes what you thought the first 2 episodes were trying to depict. And it constantly does this shit with you over and over again. I think if you have ambitions of being a writer of any format or of any medium, right? Whether it be literature or film, or even a video game writer, like a narrative writer, like, you still need to see these first 2 episodes to understand and study what it looks like to, in practice, have balanced writing, balanced themes, balanced characters, and how to set the tone while not meandering and losing your audience. Because I'm all about a slow burn. I love me some slow burns. Please, slow burn me all day. And in practice, this should feel like a slow burn in a good way, but it's so precise that it doesn't, and it's so intentional that in its slow burn, I feel like we're moving towards something, even though I don't know what the fuck that something is. I don't know what that bad thing is that's gonna happen. Now, at the end of episode 4, we do reach a plot moment, and I think this is where it's going to go either left or right, because we at this point we've gone so many different ways that you're either going to be sold or reject the idea completely. Now, because the show has done such a great job giving me all these different bits and pieces and tropes of different subgenres of horror, I'm completely sold on the concept of the idea of what is happening to them, and I want to see more. I genuinely want to see more, especially because they do something really interesting with one character that just kind of shows up and is extra creepy for no reason. And if you guys have seen Wonder Man, you know who I'm talking about. But he shows up, and he feels like, if you guys have played Alan Wake 2, the janitor, he feels like that mystery janitor guy that just shows up at the right time. Is just kind of saying shit like he knows more than he's leading on. And it's through him that we learn a few things, and it's really, really, really satisfying what I discovered through this fourth episode. So I don't know where it's gonna go, but I'm really excited to unravel this on a narrative spectrum. This feels akin to something like The Haunting of Hill House, or even The Fall of the House of Usher. And I'm not saying it's to that level, because Mike Flanagan is untouchable. My man is about to do, he's the only man that I would ever trust doing any kind of sequel or remake to The Exorcist, and I'm so happy that he's the one, because I've been burned too many times. That being said, I do think that this show has the kind of juice, if you will, that made shows like The Fall of the House of Usher, Midnight Mass, which is my favorite one out of Mike Flanagan, The Fall of the House of Usher, and Yellow Jackets. It has that juice that made those shows distinct and feel different and feel unique and weird and risky, because all those shows are risky. The Fall of the House of Usher isn't for anyone, but it's amazing. And Midnight Mass is also not for everyone, especially if you're expecting like a just straight up horror experience. It's so much more than that. And this is so much more than just what you're presented from the trailer. Yellow Jackets as well. I don't know what the subgenre of shows could be called, but where they all have this big cast that are led by some kind of existential horror, and we touch on different subgenres of horror. I feel like this has potential to, if it's a home run, be considered one of the better shows of Netflix as a whole. So I will keep you guys updated if you haven't seen it, or if you have seen it but just care to know how I feel by the end of it. Stay tuned. I hate saying fucking subscribe. It feels disingenuous, but if you do want to stay in the loop, subscribe, all that notification shit, so that I can make sure you guys are there for part 2 of this part 1. I'd be really interested to see what you guys think. Please feel free to tell me how you feel about the show. Even if I haven't finished it, I'm more than happy to know. Just try to keep, spoiler free-ish for most of the people that haven't seen the show. Please feel free to have the stage and talk about how you felt about the show, at least for the first 4 episodes. I'm really, really excited to see where we go with this. Hopefully it hits. If it doesn't, at least we have those first 2 episodes. I still think those first 2 episodes are worth watching for anyone who wants to be a writer, genuinely. We do have some exciting things coming on later on this week. We have an early screening to Over Your Dead Body, and an early screener to Lee Cronin's The Mummy. So, and it's on the halfway mark to Halloween. Let's go. So I guess that'd be a great way to celebrate our halfway mark to Halloween. We are already halfway there. This is awesome. No better way to enjoy that and celebrate that than Lee Cronin's The Mummy, which looks like an absolute fucking banger of a horror film. I am so excited for that. Of course, not more excited than I would be if it was Brandon Fraser's The Mummy 4, but that's due out 2027. So or I believe 2028. We're filming 2027. Nonetheless, I am so excited for The Mummy, both mummies actually. And if you guys have read the early release or the early reviews for the screeners, they're saying that this mummy, Lee Cronin's Mummy, is disgusting, mean-spirited, gory, and more akin to a demonic possession movie that takes heavily from The Exorcist. So when anything takes heavily from The Exorcist, my heart goes in knots. But at the same time, this is from the director of Evil Dead Rise, and Evil Dead Rise takes demonic possession to like quirky levels. So If this is his Evil Dead Rise meets The Mummy, I'm so in. And it's 2 hours and 15 minutes. This isn't a normal runtime hour and 40-minute horror movie. No, dude, this is in 2 hour and 15-minute long movie. What do you have to say? You know what I'm saying? Like, now I'm like, dog, there's at least 35 minutes tacked onto this movie that any other horror movie would have cut, and you thought it was important enough to keep. So now I am sat. Give me the nasty shit. I'm so ready for this movie. So expect my review on that day. Thank you to the funny thing, man. It just blows me away. I got to bring it up all the time. But just yesterday we were at 110 subscribers. Just yesterday, I woke up this morning. We're at 131. And just the day before that, it took 3 days to get 31 subscribers. And most of the 20 were from last night till right now. So, man, I love this. This is so cool that there's so many nerds just wanting to talk with me and talk movies, dude. This is so fucking cool. So, I appreciate you guys. I will try not to burn out and doing videos daily. But this so far it's fun, so I'm just gonna keep going until I get tired of this shit. Anyway, I'm done yapping. This has been your episode of the Cosmic Frame for tonight. It is 2:30 in the morning, so I'm gonna try to have an early night. All right, guys. I'll see you guys tomorrow, and as always, I will see you at the movies.